Hello, everyone. It's Jamal Thomas. Welcome to the Progressive Soapbox. Al Franken. Al Franken. Say it ain't so, Al. Now, Al Franken, essentially a woman released an image, a picture, along with her testimony saying that Al Franken groped and forcibly kissed her. Now, in addition to groping and forcibly kissing her, she put out a statement explaining what took place and when it happened. Al Franken was contrite, and he issued an apology right off the bat. Now, Al Franken didn't have a choice but to issue an apology because Al Franken was caught red-handed. I am not laughing at the fact that somebody was sexually abused. We need to be very clear about that because I know I have the giggles in the story. It's not that. It's the way Al Franken was going out carrying that sexual assault that's tripping me out. Let's take a look at this picture for the moment. He seems extraordinarily content with himself. He's like, I am touching the breasts of an unconscious woman. I'm Al Franken. This is absolute comedy. This is absolute comedy. It's the look on his face. He just seems so pleased. He just seems immensely pleased. Again, not laughing at the fact that somebody is being sexually assaulted. I'm laughing at the means at which the person is carrying out that sexual assault. I don't know if Al Franken thought this was funny. I don't know if Al Franken thought this was funny. There is a difference between men and women on this, and I am not giving him a pass. The show tries to give context in every situation. Doesn't necessarily matter what it is. And look, regardless of the context I'm going to give, it doesn't matter. Al Franken needs to step aside. Now, the reason Al Franken needs to step aside is because Democrats have been howling at the top of their lungs that the other guy in the Republican Party needed to step aside. Okay, what's good for the goose is good for the gander. I'm just saying, it's only fair. If the standard is you commit sexual assault, you step aside and you lose your seat, Al Franken has committed sexual assault, even though he's looking ridiculous in the means to which he's, pursuing that sexual assault. It's still a sexual assault nonetheless. Now, what I mean by this is, let me read her story first, so we get a little bit more context, and I want to add something to this. So, the way she puts it, she's looking through a photo album, and she sees that picture, and it pisses her off. Now, let me see. Here we are. A few weeks ago, we had California Congresswoman, and I'm jumping towards the bottom of this. Yeah, here we are. Yeah, jumping towards the bottom of this. Oh, God, I have to read the whole thing. Because she starts at the top, and she's listing his failures. All right. Franken had written some skits, and they went to in abroad. They were doing a show for the troops, so that's the pretext for all this. That's where all of this took place. So that's the setting for all this. Franken had written some skits for the show and bought props and costumes to go along with them. Like many USO shows before and since, the skits were full of sexual innuendo geared towards a young male audience. As a TV host and sports broadcaster, as well as a model familiar with the audience from covers of FHM, Maxim and Playboy, I was only expecting to immerse and introduce the acts. But Franken said he had written part for me, and he thought it would be funny, and I agreed to play along. When I saw the script, Franken had written a moment when his character comes at me for a kiss. I suspected what he was after, but I figured I could turn my head at the last minute, or put my hand up over his mouth to get more laughs from the crowd. On the day of the show, Franken and I were alone backstage, going over our lines one last time. He said to me, "We need to rehearse the kiss." I laughed and ignored him. Then he said it again. I said something like, "Relax, Al. This isn't SNL. We don't need to rehearse the kiss." He continued to insist, and I was beginning to get uncomfortable. He repeated that actors really need to rehearse everything and that we must practice the kiss. I said, okay, so he would stop badgering me. We did the line leading up to the kiss, and then he came at me, put his hand on the back of my head, mashed his lips against mine, and aggressively stuck his tongue in my mouth. Oh. I immediately pushed him away with both hands against his chest and told him if he ever did that to me again, I wouldn't be so nice about it next time. You should have punched Al Franken in the balls. You should have punched Al Franken directly in the balls. I walked away, and all I could think about was getting to the bathroom as fast as possible to rinse the taste out of my mouth. I was going to give Al Franken some benefit of the doubt until I read that. There's no benefit of the doubt. Like, it's one thing if you say we need to rehearse lines and you guys are, Al Franken is just being overly anal about the lines that he's doing. Okay. I could see him being slightly pervish without necessarily going over the line where it's someone ambiguous. Okay. This is not ambiguous. This is not ambiguous. A, she wasn't interested. B, she decided to go along with it because you were badgering the woman. C, you didn't need to rehearse the lines. It was ridiculous to have to rehearse the lines. It sounds like pretext. And D, when all is said and done, at the end of the day, you stuck your tongue down her throat. She said, I felt disgusted and violated. Not long after, I performed the skit as written, carefully turning my head so he couldn't kiss me on the lips. No one saw what happened backstage. I didn't tell Sergeant Major of the Army, who was the sponsor of the tour. I didn't tell the USO rep what happened. At the time, I didn't want to cause trouble. We were in the middle of a war zone. It was the first show of the holiday tour. I was a professional and I could take care of myself. I told a few of the others on tour what Franken had done, and they knew about how I felt about it. I tried to let it go, but I was angry. Other than our dialogue on stage, I had never volunteered or never had a voluntary conversation with Al Franken again. I avoided him as much as possible and made sure I was never alone with him again for the rest of the tour. Franken repaid me with petty insults, including drawing devil horns on at least one of the headshots I was photographed for the tour. But he didn't stop there. This is getting dickish. This is getting dickish. The tour wrapped up on Christmas Eve when we had a 36-hour trip home to LA. After 2 weeks of grueling travel and performing, I was exhausted. When our C-17 cargo plane took off from Afghanistan, I immediately fell asleep, even though I was wearing my flak vest and Kevlar helmet. It wasn't until I was back home in the United States looking through the CD of photos we were given by the photographer that I saw this one. That's the one I showed before, with his hands on her tits. I couldn't believe it. He groped me without my consent while I was asleep. I felt violated all over again, embarrassed, belittled, and humiliated. How dare anyone grab my breasts like this and think it's funny? I told my husband everything that had happened and showed him the picture. Now, here, let me read this part too. I wanted to shout my story to the world with a megaphone to anyone that would listen, but as angry as I was worried about the potential backlash and damage going public might have ended my career as a broadcaster. There's another component to this, right? She had already felt violated by Al Franken. After all, he stuck his tongue in her mouth when he wasn't, she in no way gave him consent to do such a thing. And clearly she was disinterested. To have the indignity of somebody doing that, meaning you greatly dislike that person, that person is finding ways to antagonize you on a trip. Because I would imagine at some point he probably understood, okay, I've overstepped my bounds. And she's not being receptive to this. And so, you would think that at that point you would be immensely contrite, you would be immensely sorry, but instead he was being a dick. And to up the ante by grabbing her breasts. There is no context. I was going to at least, I have to be honest, I didn't read that part. If Al Franken was just being overly anal and wanted to do a show and practice, fair enough. If Al Franken wanted to go through with the kiss, but he never actually landed the kiss because she turned her head, fair enough. But all of this comes across as being gross and unsettling. Let me put it that way. If the only thing was him groping her in her sleep, meaning like none of this other stuff had taken place, Al Franken just thought it was hilarious to grope somebody. Men have odd ways of rationalizing stuff at times, meaning a guy could think it was funny. Like Al Franken in that particular moment may have thought that was fucking hilarious to him. In no way did she think it was hilarious being groped. And I would imagine, yeah, you'll probably feel a little bit embarrassed by it. So, shame on Al Franken. Shame on Al Franken. There was a poll that was taken out by people who voted for Hillary Clinton. 70% said that they believed that Al Franken was set up by Russia. They believe he was set up by Russia. They believed that the woman was giving sleeping pills and Al Franken was hypnotized in order to grab her breasts. I'm joking, by the way. I'm saying that I'm wondering whether the Democrats are going to be so adamant about Al Franken stepping aside, seeing that he committed sexual assault. Are they going to ask for Franken to step aside? That's the question. That's the question. They were adamant that the other guy, the other Republican, step aside. The one who, the one who molested that woman, or 40 years ago or something, and came out was like, yeah, why would any grown woman wait 40 years to come out and say that she was sexually assaulted? It's like, what does the time have to do with the fact that the woman was sexually assaulted? I'm curious to see how Democrats are going to handle this. What do you think? Place your bets. Are Democrats going to ask Al Franken to step aside, seeing as he's committed sexual assault, and seeing that the standard that Democrats have set is if you commit sexual assault, you need to be chased out of your electoral seat? We will see. All right, I will leave it at that. All right, guys, if you enjoy the content, feel free to share, like, subscribe, and of course, you can always support Patreon. Thanks, guys.